All right, guys, welcome to episode 3 of Melanated and Elevated. I am your host, Kia Wilson. Today, again, as I was telling, I'm actually live on Facebook and Instagram, and as I was telling some of, excuse me, the audience there, that my goal for today was to actually release a part of the live that Sean Howard and I did about some men's mental health topics and fatherhood, things of that nature. But somehow I was having some technical difficulties with that. And so you couldn't really hear the sound on my end really well. So I just decided to scrap it. and we will actually get together and record a really like drill down couple of episodes about specifically men's mental health and fatherhood, and actually be able to record those in the format that I'm used to, instead of trying to be do too much by my nature. And but it's all good. Either way, all right, thank you guys for tuning in. Welcome to episode 3. My name is Kia Wilson. I am the host of Melanated and Elevated. As some of you may know, I am a licensed psychotherapist. But I am not your therapist. So if you are having some mental health concerns, stay tuned and I will give you some resources at the end of the episode. Again, this is a disclaimer. This is not to excuse me. This is not meant to replace any medical advice. So if you are having concerns, please reach out to your healthcare professionals or a therapist. If you need help linking to any of those resources, feel free to message me and I will try to help you as best as I can. Speaking of messaging me, since I am on live, I will try to see if I may be able to pull in any questions that people may have about imposter syndrome as I am discussing it. I'll try. Again, this will be my first time kind of taking questions live, and I don't know why I like to just throw myself into the deep end of stuff, but it is what it is. If I don't get around to it, I forget. I'll try again next time, okay? All right, guys. So, again, remembering that Melanated and Elevated, this is a podcast in which we have courageous conversations. And so I believe that how we start that off is by creating an environment that, what we have to say will be received. And so sometimes I do like to start that off in some prayer. So, Lord, I just ask you to please let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh, Lord, my strength and my redeemer. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that, I think more and more people now are really starting to learn about and really starting to recognize. I saw a rise in this, especially like in the beginning of the pandemic, where we were having a lot of people that were working from home, a lot of meetings, things of this nature. And we were really having people that were struggling with what we like to call imposter syndrome. Now, don't be, ashamed if you have not heard of this term. I'm pretty sure once we kind of get done explaining it, you will resonate with this at some point in time in your life. If not, please feel free to share this information with someone else because people are really struggling. And so when we talk about imposter syndrome, let's first and foremost get a definition to it. So, what is imposter syndrome? If you have ever walked into a room feeling like everyone else has it together and you're just pretending to fit in, or like if you've ever held back sharing your ideas because you fear that they might sound stupid, you may have, or more than likely have, experienced an imposter syndrome. And so it's basically like this nagging sense of self-doubt, incompetence, and like this internal belief that your successes are not earned, but are a result of luck or fooling others. And so imposter syndrome does not discriminate. It does impact people of all ages, backgrounds, professions. So if you recognize, excuse me, any of this and it kind of hits home for you, you are in good company. I've experienced imposter syndrome before. Hell, sometimes I still experience it when I have to come up and like here and go live and stuff. And sometimes I will say, I notice at one point in time, I would say to myself, well, are people going to listen? Like, they're going to say, well, how is she able to tell somebody? Like, she's made some really terrible decisions. And then, by the grace of God and by mindfulness, because I'm really intentional with my thoughts and what I entertain, I stopped that thought and I replaced it. And I heard the Holy Spirit speak to me and say, okay, if not you, then who? Like, why shouldn't you be able to tell people or to help people? You've been through it, got the professional knowledge, the book knowledge, the personal experience. So, yeah, and you have the God given gift. So, why not? And so, I say that to say, even as a novice counselor, I struggled with that. And now, even as almost 20 years in the field, whenever I have to like venture out and do new things, sometimes I will struggle with that. But now I have the tools that I need to not lean into those thoughts as being the truth and stopping me from kind of moving forward and making really courageous and brave decisions and stepping outside of my comfort zone. All right, so even though imposter syndrome does not discriminate, I will say this: I have seen it really impact Black women. From my experience, it feels like disproportionately. And I think because we have that double minority thing of being women and of being Black, that it almost feels like we are doubly doubting ourselves or wondering, like, oh, you know, because we're used to being overlooked. We're used to being kind of silenced. We're used to being the last to be recognized, even though we are sometimes the most skilled in the room, the most experienced in the room. So I say that to say that I do want to hold space for everyone, but especially for Black women, because this is something that I have encountered in my professional career often that we struggle with. And so when we think about imposter syndrome, right, it can really be triggered by a number of things. So it can be triggered by new experiences such as a promotion, a new job, starting college, becoming a parent, launching your own business, or even like simple moments of voicing like an opinion in a conversation. Or others may find this to be true, like commenting on something on social media, kind of like that hesitation that you have that will kind of cause you to rethink your comments or reread it or erase it or whatever the case may be. And so that kind of quiet whisper of, you're not qualified, you're a fraud, this is stupid, what you're saying doesn't make sense, you're too young, old, too inexperienced, too something, right? And so this is a skilled kind of illusion that is brought forth by, I think, a number of things. As with a lot of things, nature, nurture really plays a part in it. But we'll kind of save that for a little bit and kind of come back to that. So these thoughts really discredit us in our accomplishments, and it really causes us to discredit ourselves and to really silence ourselves, to shrink ourselves, and to not spring forth with the gifts, the talents, and the abilities that we have in this world. How many of us are sitting on amazing ideas or business ideas that may be like the next big thing, and we convince ourselves that, nah, not me. Like, no, I'm just, what do I know about that? Like, that's silly. And we really will talk ourselves out of things and be our own worst enemies sometimes. And so the shadow that creates, excuse me, can really have severe consequences for our well-being. We can experience increased anxiety, low self-confidence, perfectionism, stress, fear, depression, and a robbing of our joy from our successes. Because who wants to work hard and really bust our butts only to give credit away to luck or to flukes or other people instead of leaning into the tough work that we've done, the talents that we have? And so it's hard to feel joy when we don't feel that we've earned it, right? And so in this day and age where it's just so much negativity, distress, so many things that are pulling at you that are trying to rob your peace, rob your joy, mental health, things of that nature. You want to give yourself a fighting chance at some level of happiness, a level of joy. You have to be intentional about choosing happiness and choosing joy. So why not give yourself a leg up and say, okay, well, let me give myself credit for the hard work I've done. We're so quick to discount ourselves. If we made a mistake, that mistake would be running in our mind, a full-blown marathon. Every day when we try to go to sleep, when we try to nap, those mistakes are like running in our mind. And so why can't it be the same for positive things? Why can't we allow those victories, those good decisions, those moments where we actually are able to take the spotlight and be recognized and have good experiences? Why can't we take those moments and allow those to run a marathon in our mind as well? So this is kind of where mindfulness plays a part in that. What we choose to entertain, the thoughts that we choose to hold on to, the thoughts and the feelings that we choose to lean into. A lot of times we choose to accept the negative, to lean into the negative, instead of recognizing those cognitive distortions that are at place, those thoughts, those people who sometimes still, they're the ghosts of things that they said to us, whether it be parents, old lovers, family, friends. Those things still play a part in our mind and influence our decision making. And so when we think about cognitive distortions, and we're going to have an episode dedicated solely to cognitive distortions, but a cognitive distortion that seems to be at play with imposter syndrome, several of them, but mainly the one of discounting the positive. So discounting the positive is where we tend to, when good things happen in our lives, we tend to again, blame it on luck, blame it on like a fluke, blame it on, okay, it's somebody else that was able to make it happen for us, instead of looking inward and seeing how our gifts, talents, and abilities played a part in making that thing come to fruition. And if we're always giving out our flowers to other people and allowing other people to take the credit for our hard work, or even discounting our hard work by kind of explaining it away, then that creates a sense of learned helplessness and of hopelessness. And not only does imposter syndrome really tackle your anxiety, because it makes you think about, well, oh God, I got this meeting coming up. What am I going to say? Oh gosh, ooh, I said something really stupid in that other meeting. And you think about it and you play it back over and over and over again. So anxiety is already flaring when you know you have to present, when you know you have to be in a meeting, when you know you've been given a project. So you're fighting against that, and you're also fighting against depression, because when you are talking about learned helplessness and hopelessness, those are two of the hallmarks of depression. If we feel like we don't have a major part to play in what happens in our lives, then we don't feel the need to really try. We don't feel the need to really, put that effort in, because we just feel like life is happening to us instead of us stepping into life, meeting it where it is, and kind of looking at it that way. So When we think about imposter syndrome and we talk about this nature versus nurture thing, we will be able to see that a lot of things are able to kind of set up shop in our mind and really like make negativity comfortable because our mind has already been primed to receive those messages. Growing up, if any of you have ever grown up and had a really hypercritical household where it was, okay, well, yeah, okay, you got to be, sorry, well, you got an A, okay, get an A plus next time, or, oh, you got that question wrong, okay, try to get all of them right next time, or we were criticized for how we looked, how we talked, the way we thought, our interests, things of that nature. And so because it is an innate desire in us to belong, those things really hit home, and we then start to question ourselves. We start to carve away parts of ourselves in an effort to be minimal, to not do too much, say too much, because if we're not doing too much or saying too much, the risk of us saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing minimizes. And so those messages, again, are programmed and indoctrinated into us since childhood, whether you were a survivor of childhood abuse or of bullying, or neurodivergent and had difficulty really understanding social cues and how to like fit in. Those are all very real experiences. And so when we think about that, if our mind is already programmed to feel like we're wrong or something is wrong with us, it doesn't take much for one or two kind of what we perceive to be negative experiences or interactions to come in and to rob us of our peace, to rob us of our confidence. And so we carry that weight with us in our interactions, and it seems to show up more so. Work seems to be an area that people are really find that it glares and it kind of comes out. But once we get into therapy and we start unpacking some of the things, you're able to see how imposter syndrome not only impacts you at your job, but in your friendships, relationships, in your satisfaction, quality of life, in your pursuit of the things that make you happy or that you have interest in. So again, that's really kind of small clip of nature versus nurture. And again, a lot of times it's not really a versus, it's just a perfect mixture of both that tends to kind of predispose us to certain things. And we don't have an awareness of it. We tend to carry those things around with us as if they are the truth. We wear them as if they are the truth. And we maneuver through life as if they are our truth. And it's not until we sometimes get in therapy and we're able to unpack those things and see, have I been wearing things or like burdened down by garments that no longer fit me, that don't match or that don't, align with me? But until we really start being intentional and really recognizing the thoughts that we think and that we allow ourselves to entertain, these things will continue. Those thoughts, those lack of self-confidence, all the things that people used to say that would make you feel questionable about yourself, they run amok in our mind in the background, playing like this be real over and over and over again. And because we're not utilizing mindfulness to capture our thoughts and bring our thoughts into submission, we take them automatically as the truth and we never take the time to dissect them, right? So, thinking about this, we talked a little bit about how it originates. Talked a little bit about, how it's a perfect cocktail of life experiences, personality traits, childhood experiences, societal pressures, and more that predispose us to imposter syndrome. But it's in the understanding of your own unique brewing process that kind of gives you the recipe for countering it. Now, today I can give you several general things that tend to work for people, but I encourage you that if this is something that you are really struggling with, please go speak to a therapist about it. You can pray and believe in Jesus or believe and be a 5% or whatever you want to believe in and still go to therapy, right? If you had a broken arm, you wouldn't just say, well, I mean, just go ahead and pop this thing back in place and just walk around, or just walk around with this limp because I got a broken leg, and just say, okay, well, hey, I don't need to go see anybody for that. I can fix it. I can pray it away. I can think it away. I can hide it away. No, no. Because the same way that broken leg will give you away and prevent you from being able to live your life fully and limit you, is the same way that mental health concerns and conditions are the same. And I venture to say that they impact a lot of different areas of your life, not just one or two, the whole essence of your life once you sit down and think about it. So, all right, let's see, what else do we have? Let's talk a little bit before we part ways about how we can counteract imposter syndrome. Let's kind of get to what everyone wants to know. And I know it's easy to kind of get caught up in like this microwave society of quick fixes. But I want to give you this disclaimer that it is going to take time. It's going to take effort of you examining those thoughts and choosing to replace that negative thought with something that's positive, something that's true, something that's objective. And it's going to feel like a lot of work. But the good thing is, because the brain has what we call, I can't talk today, has neuroplasticity, that means that it can change. It takes a long time now and a lot of repetition, which are the principle of behavioralism, right? You got to do it. You got to practice it. And then one day you'll wake up and it won't take as much effort to change your thoughts. And then you'll wake up and you'll notice that your thoughts don't automatically go to a place of negativity about yourself. But you got to believe that you're worth it. And you got to put the effort in. So, speaking up about imposter syndrome is one way that you can counteract it. Challenging your inner critic, celebrating your accomplishments, and practicing self-compassion. All of those things can help to weaken its grip on us. It may not make it go away fully, but again, that's what therapy is for. That's what learning about cognitive distortions and cognitive restructuring and reframing will do for you. But let's kind of unpack these really quickly. Just take small bites out of it. So, speaking up about imposter syndrome, you will realize once you talk about things, it really removes its power. It really does. This is true for the major traumas all the way to anxieties and self-esteem and things of that nature. Because once you talk about it, whether it be in therapy or whether it be with, some colleagues, some trusted colleagues or trusted friends, you will see that a lot of working professionals or a lot of people struggle with imposter syndrome, struggle with taking up space. And so talking about it helps to build that community, helps you to see that it's not just you. Remembering that mental health and mental health conditions thrive in shame and secrecy. Because if I don't talk about it, then I won't realize that a lot of other people have struggled with that too. And the more and more we speak up about it, the more and more it removes that stigma. And it normalizes it and it externalizes it from who we are and the essence of who we are as a person. So we're no longer the things that happen to us or the things that have been said to us. We now are defining our identity with ourselves. So, second thing is challenging your inner critic. So we all understand that there are thoughts that are playing in our mind that are not helpful. We are our own worst enemies. And I say it and I'll keep saying it over and over again. We are. And so I ask people, if you heard your son or daughter, if you heard a loved one speaking to themselves the way that you speak to yourself or the way that you allow those thoughts to speak to you, would you be pleased with what you heard? Would you tell them, no, don't say that about yourself, or don't talk about yourself like that? You're tripping. If so, why do you allow yourself to speak to yourself like that? And then you have the nerve to believe it and act on it as if it's the truth. So challenging your inner critic, we're going to talk more about how do we challenge your inner critic. But I will tell you really quickly, if you've ever seen Being Mary Jane, you will notice that she uses Post-its and she writes thoughts, affirmations on her Post-its. That is an amazing way to challenge your inner critic. Writing an affirmation, how you want to see yourself, how you want to feel about yourself, writing that down, posting that on your bathroom mirror. So while you're brushing your teeth, you could just listen. You can read through it. Remembering that we're not speaking to that first level of consciousness that has the mental filtering of all the bad things and like the things that we have to get through to believe what we're saying. We're speaking to that subconscious, that vulnerable parts of us that wants to hear what we have to say and is more open to hearing than our first level of consciousness. So writing down affirmations, how you want to feel about yourself, things that you want to see happen, and really posting them on mirrors, posting them on things that you will see often. So as you're going through your day, you can read them and get them into your spirit. Because if we're taking away a negative thought, we cannot take away something without replacing it with something else. We leave space. And when we leave space, the devil can kind of like run amok in our mind. So replacing it with something else. Also celebrating your accomplishments, those things that you deserve to be celebrated about, and you deserve to big yourself up for lack of better words. The smallest thing to the biggest thing. How do we do that? Gratitude journaling. Before you lie your head down at nighttime, choosing one thing from the most minute to the biggest, whatever. If you ain't cuss nobody out today, write it down. Hey, I am proud of myself because I didn't cuss nobody out today. I lay down in gratitude. Thank you. Write that down and like really be glad about that. If you took the opportunity to be mindful today and to show up intentionally, write that down. If you took an opportunity to react in a different way to your kids or to something else that is aggravating you, write that down. Celebrate the smallest things to the biggest things. And watch how it changes the dynamic of how you feel about yourself as you lay down and go to sleep. And even as you wake up in the morning and you hit it with those affirmations, telling you. And then practicing self-compassion. We struggle with that a lot, right? Being compassionate towards ourselves. And that's why we struggle with being nice with other people. But that's a whole nother episode. But we struggle with loving others because we struggle with loving ourselves. We struggle with speaking kindly about other people because we struggle with speaking kindly about ourselves. We struggle with loving other people and with connecting with other people because we struggle with connecting with ourselves. If you don't like yourself, how in the world are you going to like anybody else? And that's something that I learned, but it took me a lot of years to learn that. It took me a lot of struggles in relationships, like friendships, not just romantic relationships, but just interacting with other people. And it was because, again, those negative thoughts that we have playing about ourselves, I'm socially awkward, I'm weird, I'm blah, blah, blah. And so we build up this defense mechanism, and pretty soon we live life guarded because we just know that somebody has to feel like, if we feel that way about ourselves, if we feel corny, if we feel, whatever, then somebody else must feel it. And so we get used to being on edge, to being defensive, to be ready to defend ourselves, who we are, because we attack our own selves every day in our mind. On top of being bullied, on top of, experiencing adverse situations with people. So it's not kind of like a one thing. Again, it's a perfect cocktail and mixture of several different things, but it does play a part in it. So practicing self-compassion, believing that we set out every day to do our best and we're human, and we gave 100% that day, and remembering that 100% looks different on any given day. So again, replacing your critical inner voice with a compassionate one with loving kindness. You can do this by way of meditation. When you're meditating, remembering that as your mind wanders, because your mind is going to wander, you're thinking, breathing, feeling human being. Bring the thought back captive, accept it with loving kindness, and return yourself back to the focal point, back to the breath. So that's a way that you can learn how to practice bringing yourself back in a loving and kind way each time you wander off, without conviction, without criticism. Also remembering that the most successful people have made mistakes. They've been uncertain. And they too have felt moments where they have faced feeling like being an imposter, or kind of questioning whether or not they deserve to be somewhere, or they're smart, or they're worthy. But they are. Remembering that Amazon was founded in somebody's basement. Now, granted, he got a lot of money now to, family wealth is helpful with that. So, of course, I'm not going to say that without understanding how privilege works. But I will say this: if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. And you give away too much of your power looking for other people to pour into you, to believe in you, to give you permission to exist, to be, to start that business, to do that thing that God has been telling you is on your plate for you to do, and you're running. And pretty soon, Jonah, you're going to find yourself in the mouth of the whale. I know I've been in there swimming a couple of times. It ain't fun. But remember that, nobody has it all together. And I think this is one of the reasons why I kind of like doing these live episodes, because it makes me have to not be perfect. I struggle with starting this podcast for a long time. And really, it's not about who hears it, how many views it gets, none of that. I understand my purpose, and I understand what God told me this purpose was for. So that's all I need, right? But it was still me thinking okay, I gotta have it perfect. I can't stutter. I can't do this. No. All right, let me combat that. Let me get up here live and let's just, see what happens. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining. We're at 34 minutes. Let me check in and see what we got. All right. So, again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Melanated and Elevated. Remembering that if you are in need, or you are having any sort of mental health concerns, if you are having thoughts of wanting to harm yourself, harm somebody else, or you need to talk with someone, please feel free to dial 911, to go to your nearest emergency room, or go to your local CSB. If you are looking for a therapist, you can feel free to message me and I will try to help you. Also, you can go on psychologytoday.com, where you can filter for your insurance, your issues, be able to see the therapist, and see if they have availability. But it's help out here. Everyone is in this big circle of healing. I have therapists that I see in my practice. I see a therapist. it's a big circle of healing, and I'm pretty sure she sees a therapist, and so, or has seen one. So time is out for everyone faking the funk or pretending like, it's not something there when it is. We're living in very perilous times, times that we don't understand. And I'm not sure we're meant to understand. But I think that you got to have something to lean on, whether it be spirituality, community, but also, therapy can be a part of that. Why struggle when you don't have to? All right. So remembering that the views that I express are not necessarily representing Phoenix Rising Counseling and Consulting, which is my group practice. They just represent what Kia feels. That's it. I'm just Kia. All right. So again, I'll see you guys next week. I don't really know. Next week, I have a couple different options that I'm going to see about certain topics. But of course, if you guys have any topics that you want to see addressed, please feel free to message me. Want to make sure that we're addressing what other people are going to find useful. Okay. All right. So have an amazing week. Remember, why not you? Whenever you feel like you want to doubt yourself, why not you? All right. Have an amazing day. Y'all be blessed. Bye-bye. All right. Yes. Hey. Eh, Hey, sweetie. Can you take this and somebody let sir. Hello. Sir.